Hey, welcome back. This is Jennifer, and this is the Dwelling Richly podcast, and it's a special episode of the podcast. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this secret, this little surprise I've been talking about. If you've been listening to the podcast for the past couple of weeks, you've heard me give a couple of hints, maybe not even hints, it's just kind of alerts that I've got a surprise coming. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And so you can be tuned in. So let's see where to begin. So many of you know probably that my dad was a pastor, and growing up, we were PKs or pastors' kids for a season. My dad had a church in Simi Valley, a little Simi Valley Bible Church, Simi Valley, California. And we actually lived in the parsonage of that church. I was younger at the time. I was in second grade, and we could walk to church right back through our backyard. It was really neat. We could actually walk to school right down the street. So walk to church on the Sunday and walk to school the other days of the week, walk across the street to a big community park. And so in my early years, I remember being a pastor's kid. In fact, before that, we lived in San Diego where I was born. And my dad had graduated from Moody Bible Institute, and he took a position as a youth pastor in a small church down there in San Diego. Then we moved up to Simi Valley, and he was the senior pastor at this little Bible church. All right. So fast forward, and you know how timelines go. I'm a little blurry on the details of that season. I have a few specific memories. I've shared about that in a couple other podcasts ago, but since my dad passed away in 2016, my mom passed in 2019, these are the types of things I would have gone back to them with great eagerness. And I wish I could. To say, hey, tell me a little bit more about this other season after Dad was a pastor at Bible Church in Simi Valley. All right. We hop and skip a bit from that season through a few other transitions in our family life. And for a while, my dad had left the full-time ministry, and it was a lay pastor then. At this point, fast forward, it's 1980 or so. And I'm 14 now. It's about 7 years later. I'm 14 years old, and we are attending a small church in Newbury Park, California, called First Baptist Church of Newbury Park. First Baptist Church, Newbury Park. The church still exists, kind of neat. It's called Grace Baptist Church. It's still there on Silas Avenue in Newbury Park. That's beside the point. a little extra details I build up to my little moment here. All right. So I have very strong memories of that season of my life in the late 70s and all the way through the early 80s of being at that church in Newbury Park, and just the youth group there and Sunday school classes and attending church, big church. Pastor John MacArthur, yes, that John MacArthur was his dad was the pastor, for an interim pastor there for a short while the church was doing a little pastoral search. All right. That's a lot of detail, but I promise I'm getting to the point. I have very distinct memories during that season of our great youth pastor and teaching and sitting in church and hearing our pastor Jack and other pastors that I don't remember by name teaching. But one of the most strong memories, the most loved memories that I have is my dad and my mom teaching the adult Sunday school class. So before church, there was an adult Sunday school class, and I can picture the room vividly. I could picture us sitting on little metal folding chairs. I could picture my dad up in the front of it with a chalkboard behind him. And I was a young teen at the time. I don't know how much I paid attention, but enough to absorb somewhat of my dad's teaching and my mom's as well. I have pretty distinct recollection of going through a series of Proverbs because my mom was invited to teach by my dad, Proverbs 31. And I remember that being a little bit of a upset in the church, should women be able to teach in Sunday school and what have you, because there would be men and women both in the same class. But to their credit and Pastor Jack MacArthur's credit, they encouraged my mom to teach that class. So just some of the little memories I have of that season. All right. So fast forward, and it's 2024 now, and my mom has passed, my dad has passed. And in the process of their passing and those transition and all the things that happen with their estate and any property they have, I, of my sisters, am the one local here in California. So I have a lot of their things, and it's been sitting in boxes waiting to be gone through, and just how life goes. You know how things get real busy, and it's hard to take the time and find the time when you've got all your own things going through. But they've been safely kept for the most part in my garage for quite a while. Well, this past summer, earlier in June, I was able to finally get around to doing some deep cleaning in the garage and start organizing and sorting through. I came across, in the process of doing that, a box of some of my dad's things. And in that box, I discovered, unfortunately, a rat had gotten into the garage and into that box, and it had gone onto other things as well. But that box, unfortunately, was pretty much destroyed because of rat urine by this dumb rat. Anyway, frustrating and disappointing. And in that box was a smaller box that contained some cassette tapes. So the cassette tapes, this is going to sound awful to say and kind of gross, but it's part of the story. The cassette tapes were covered with dirt that had been collected from this rat, probably passing over the top and crawling across it. Dirt and urine mixed together, caked onto it. Really gross. I know. Really, really, really gross. And so as I'm cleaning, I did not have the time, the mental space or energy to deal with any of that. So I just took that whole box and just set it aside in a safe place, knowing that eventually I would want to get to those cassette tapes, if at all possible, to see what they were. Were they, songs from the old days? I had no idea. They were covered in junk. Anyway, fast forward. Later in the summer, about 6 weeks later, I finally had some mental space and time and the wherewithal to go ahead and take a look at those cassettes and see if they were recoverable in any way at all. I got on some protective gloves. I brought them safely into the kitchen. I set them down in our porcelain sink, deep sink in the kitchen, and cleared the area so I could, somewhat hygienically get to these, open up the cassettes and see what was inside of them. So I had the cassette tape, and I was able to carefully open up the cassette with the gloves on and remove the actual cassette from the case. And lo and behold, the cassettes themselves were undamaged, completely undamaged, as far as I could tell, visibly, by any rat or anything going on with time having lapsed. And as I'm turning over the cassettes and looking at the titles of them, I see that all of the cassettes were actually recordings from this Sunday school class that my dad had taught at First Baptist Church, Newbury Park. Isn't that amazing? I mean, believe me, I stood at the kitchen sink, turning the cassettes over gently in my hand and looking at them thinking, oh my goodness, this is an incredible treasure in my hand. And yes, they've been protected from the rat problem, but were they protected at all? I could see on the date that they were from 1981. And so I thought, gosh, that's obviously a long time ago. Are the tapes even viable? Have they degraded over time? So I happen to have an old box cassette tape player. And I went and found it. It took C batteries. I had some new C batteries. I got the C batteries out and I put them back in, and I found another cassette tape, a professionally recorded cassette tape that I had. I think it was actually the Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go girl cassette tape. And I thought, I don't care if this one gets ruined, but I wanted to put a tape in there to see if this thing would even play anything. And I didn't want it to ruin. You know how cassette tapes would wrap around and then it would get ruined. So I dropped in that Wham! Cassette to see if it would play and clicked the play button, and nothing happened. And I adjusted the batteries, nothing happened. And I fussed around with it again, nothing happened. So dead end. No way to play a cassette. So I hopped over on Amazon. I thought, I'll just buy a new little mini cassette player. And I thought, as I was doing it, you know what? I'm going to want to, if I am able to listen to these cassettes, I'm going to want to be able to get these tapes, these messages of my dad's, if they're viable. I want to be able to get them over onto a digital format like MP3 and be able to share them, at least be able to listen to them on the go myself and have them there. So I went ahead and found a cassette player on Amazon, yay, that also supports an SD card, and I could it would transfer. So I put that order in and waited for the delivery. Boy, was I excited as I waited. So the delivery came in. I got the cassette player set up and ready to go. I grabbed another CD, another cassette tape at the time. I thought, oh, I'll just grab a completely different one. And this time it was from the Jazz Singer, the soundtrack from Jazz Singer. So I put the Jazz Singer in there just to test it. Again, I wanted to make sure it wouldn't grab it because I saw some of the reviews said the very first time people stuck a cassette in, it just grabbed it and messed it up. So I thought I'd test it out first, tested it on Jazz Singer, and sure enough, Coming to America played. No problem. So I popped that out and I went ahead and took one of my dad's cassettes, opened up the cassette and put it inside of the player and pressed play and waited as it queued up. And I could hear the fumbling sound of the mic adjusting and then my dad's voice. I don't even know how to tell you how beautiful the moment it was to be able to press play and hear the voice of my dad. The voice that I remember from being a teen, sitting in the same room of him, hearing him teaching. I was absolutely mesmerized. I just sat there and I listened as the sound of his voice washed over me, as the tone and his cadence and the figures of speech even he used. I knew that this was my dad. And so I waited and listened to that very first cassette. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I need to get this recorded. So I paused and I got everything set up to record, hoping that the recording would turn out. And it did. So long story short, I've been able to make recordings of about 12 of my dad's teachings from this adult Sunday school class. And that's amazing right there. It's been amazing to come back and sit in that classroom again with him and hear him teach again and to be edified again and to laugh again and to wait and hope that he would tell one little story of maybe my childhood, mention me or my sister Becky or my sister Susie or my mom or someone else that we knew from that time. And he did. There's little stories, there's little snippets. And those are blessings as well. But here's the incredible thing. If you've been following this podcast, especially this summer, at the beginning of the summer, I started a series called How to Study the Bible. Well, in the series of cassettes that I happen to have, and they're incomplete, I could tell they're all part of a long series, and there's a few from this series and a few from that series and a few from another. One of the series I have is a series my dad did called How to Enjoy the Bible. How to enjoy the Bible. And here I am teaching this summer on how to study and enjoy it and love the Word of God, right? And that was the exact title of this cassette's message that recorded of my dad's teaching. Isn't that amazing? It gets better. Are you ready for this? Among those teachings was a series that he did on Proverbs, a few cassettes messages that talk about financial matters and how to think biblically about your finances. But there's the one that, like I said, called How to Enjoy the Bible. But the bulk of all of the cassettes is actually my dad's teaching through Psalm 119. I know, right? If you've, again, been following this podcast in the past several weeks, you know that I opened up with the introduction to this series, How to Study the Bible. And we went through Colossians and we went through 1 John. And right now we're in the middle, literally in the middle as I record this particular message. We are literally in the middle of Psalm 119. I've been taking Psalm 119 in one chunk at a time, going alphabet by alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, and teaching through Psalm 119 as a platform to help us learn better how to dwell in the Word, how to study the Bible, how to enjoy, as my dad said, the Bible. Now that's incredible. Isn't that? So I don't even know what to say. I wanted to share this exciting news with you. And just so you know, coming up, I'm still in the process of recording and fine-tuning these recordings and getting them out on a platform so that I can share them with you. I won't edit them. They're going to be just raw, and you're going to hear references to my family. You're going to hear references to current events. You're going to hear the wobbly sound of the cassette. They're a lot longer format. They're about, I would say, a total of maybe 45 minutes to an hour long each. But I want to strongly encourage you as I get these ready to go, that go ahead and take the time to listen and sit at the feet of my dad, Dave Garrett, and be blessed. Be blessed as I have been being his child. And I still am because of his faithfulness in teaching his word. And because he was such an early adopter of technology, like I have been all my life as well. I guess I inherited that from him, but I've been this early adopter of technology and love to record things and put things on podcasts and get them out there. Well, my dad did the exact same thing. And he would record these Sunday school classes. Oh man, do I wish I had all of them. I've actually been in contact, or reached out, I should say, to Grace Baptist Church to see if they happen to have anything in their archives, in their library of any other cassettes. But for now, I will enjoy the bits and pieces of what I have, and soon you'll be able to enjoy those as well. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being a part of this podcast. I really want to encourage you to share and bless others with this. And get ready. I'll announce that on my website as soon as I get the rest of my dad's messages recorded, and I'll get those out there to everybody. But thanks for being a part of it, and I look forward to sharing those with you real soon.